If it's your first time here, we want you to know that we're not just a camera store. We're a space that celebrates the art of photography. In addition to selling amazing cameras, we offer local and destination workshops, gallery openings, lectures, and book signings. All of our events can be found on our website, or you can sign up for our email newsletter. If you haven't, there's an iPad that's going to be going around, or you can just talk to one of us. Okay? And we've got some upcoming events. March 2nd is our next Leica Lounge. That's going to be with Robert Zuckerman. After that, we have a Leica Q Owners Bootcamp. We have 2 spots available on that. That's March 4th through the 5th. And then in October, we're going to do something we did a couple years back, which is a fall foliage workshop. It's going to be in New Hampshire and Maine. So that's October 12th through the 16th is New Hampshire, and 16th through the 20th is going to be Maine. All right? So now that we got that out of the way, tonight it is my pleasure to welcome Marc Serota to the Leica Lounge. Marc will show images and discuss his experiences at the 2016 Summer Olympics in Rio. In 1986, a year before I was born, so sorry for dating you there, award-winning photographer Marc Serota joined the very prestigious photo staff at the Miami Herald as an intern. The experience of working alongside Pulitzer Prize winners and award-winning sports photographers opened the door for Serota as a photojournalist. Over the years, he has taken assignments and been under contract for wire services like Getty, Reuters, the AP, Agency France Press. His images have graced the pages of magazines like Sports Illustrated, ESPN, People Magazine, Newsweek, New York Times, LA Times, and the Washington Post. So he's pretty accomplished. It's a good thing. Please join me in welcoming Marc Serota.
Check, check. Hi, everybody. One thing I will clarify there, I was only 6 years old when I started my internship, so let's just be straight about that. But I do have T-shirts older than him, so. I'll just briefly give you a little bit of my background and how I got to the Miami Herald and my internships that pretty much launched my career. I was an Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale student. I met, in my first quarter, I was fortunate enough to meet an 8th quarter student who was interning at the Miami Herald, who brought me into the Miami Herald on a Saturday afternoon just to see what I thought was like the Starship Enterprise at the time. The darkrooms there were state-of-the-art for film and negative processing, and the staff there was the best in the world. The Carol Guzzi's of the world, the Mike Duseals, the Bill Frakes, the Pete Crosses, all the photographers there went on to either win multiple Pulitzers or work at newspapers like the Miami Herald. So I was very fortunate to get an opportunity. And how I got that opportunity was by asking forgiveness over permission. I was there and I told the director of photography at the time, a man named Joe Elbert, who was a mentor to many of the photographers I mentioned, as well as a lot of photographers who I didn't. I told him that I was an aspiring photojournalist and that I wanted to work for him someday, and I thought I was good enough to do so. He said, "I'd like to see your portfolio." I said, "I don't have a portfolio. I'm in first quarter. I've only been taking pictures for 2 weeks." So he said to me, "Well, I'll tell you what. There's a wrestling match going on at the James L. Knight Center, and Hulk Hogan is wrestling Randy Macho Man Savage." He said, "I know this because I'm a wrestling fan, but the Miami Herald has never, ever, ever published a wrestling picture and never will. If you can go over there and get in and take a picture that impresses me, I'll think of giving you an internship." So on my way out of the office, I had nothing but a visitor's badge on my chest. So back then, we used Motorola radios that were like this big, and in all the chargers were the radios for all the staffers charging over the weekend. So I grabbed a radio, my visitor's badge, and somebody's camera, who I still today don't know whose it was, because I didn't even have a camera of my own at the time. And I proceeded to head over to the James L. Knight Center and try to walk in the front door. Well, they wouldn't let me in. I didn't have a ticket. I didn't have a pass. So I ran down the back door. And I asked the security guard, I said, "Look, I got to get in there. I'm running late. I'm on assignment." He said, "Where's your credential?" I said, "I don't have a credential." He said, "Well, I can't let you in." I said, "Great, because I hate wrestling. Just give me your name and I'll call my office and tell them that you won't let me in and we'll both be cool." And not wanting to get in trouble, he let me in. I get to the ring in the middle of the match. I make a picture of Macho Man flying off the top rope, and I look at my watch, and the one thing that Joe Elbert had told me at that point was, deadline is 10 p.m. So I looked at my watch, and it was 9:45. So I immediately rushed back to the Miami Herald, went into the darkroom, as I said, was like a spaceship to me. Started to process my film and started to rush through, and the only thing I knew how to do in first quarter at the Art Institute was process film and make a black and white print. By the time I got the print through the dryer and out onto the desk, Joe Elbert was in a staff meeting for tomorrow's Sunday paper. So he looked at me, and I waited rather than approach him. And by the time he came over, he looked at my picture and he said, "This is a really good picture. What time is it?" It was 2 minutes after my deadline. So he said, "It was really nice meeting you, good luck, and thanks for stopping in." I got in my car and I cried all the way home. I worked as a file clerk for the American Express company, and I hated what I did for a living. But in the pull box in front of the Miami Herald, in the newspaper box, I always dreamed about having one of my pictures above the fold so one could see my name looking through without having to pay for the paper. The following morning, Sunday morning, my beeper goes off, because there were no cell phones back then, of course. And so I return this call, I don't recognize the number, and I hear Joe Elbert, Miami Herald. And now the first thing I'm thinking to myself is, oh crap, I'm in trouble for stealing the radio and talking my way in. I have no idea. So I'm really nervous at the time, and he says, "Have you seen the newspaper?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, go pick up a newspaper." And I lived across the street from the American Express company where that pull box was, so I ran to the newspaper box and pulled it out and opened the sports section, and my photo was front page of sports above the fold. So here I am thinking at that point, that's the greatest moment of my life and that's the end of it. I call him back and he says, "You start your internship on Monday." But the story doesn't end there, because as a first quarter photo student, I went into school, that morning, and I told everybody in school that I'm starting my internship today. And the director of photography there was an older gentleman that was very much a disciplinarian, that didn't believe in people going ahead and taking opportunities without going through the proper course. So by the end of school that day, I was called into his office. And he said, "Well, I heard that you are starting an internship today at the Miami Herald." And I said, "Yeah, I am." And he says, "What makes you think you deserve it?" I said, "I just have confidence in myself." And he said, "Sit down." And he picks up the phone and he calls Joe Elbert. And there was no speakerphone or anything like that, but I hear him say, "Mr. Elbert, I have a student here named Marc Serota. He's only a first quarter student, and he tells me he's got an internship starting with you today, and I'm here to tell you that he pulled the wool over your eyes. He doesn't deserve it. I've got other students here who should be in that position." Wow. He then stopped talking for about 5 minutes and hung up the phone and told me, "Get out of my office." Now I leave thinking, what do I do? Well, I drove, and I lived in Plantation, so I drove all the way down to Miami Herald, and I was there by 7 o'clock to start my internship. I walked in, "Hey, Mr. Elbert, how you doing?" He said, "Great." He goes, "Here's your assignment." And it was some pet of the week picture at somebody's house for the neighbor section. And I'm confused. He goes, what's confused you about?" I said, "Well, I was actually sitting in the director's office, and I heard the conversation that he had with you. And I figured I wasn't going to get this opportunity." And he said, "Do you want to know what I told him?" And I said, "What?" He said, "I told him that after all these years of what I do, that he shouldn't challenge me to know what talent and potential was about." And then I told him if he ever called me like that again, I'd never take one of his students again, and I hung up on him. I said, "Okay," and he said, "Thank you, thank you." And he said, are we good?" And I said, "Yeah." And I did back-to-back-to-back internships, 3 internships in a row, and my career was started that way. So I think the point of what I'm trying to say is that for me, it was not me who, if not now when. And I feel that way about every young photographer, any photographer who comes along, and anybody who I lecture for. I tell them that if you think that you can't wind up in Life magazine or on the front of Sports Illustrated, I'm living proof that that's not true. So the slideshow I'm going to show you is about the Rio Olympics. It was my 7th Olympics. I like doing the Olympics because every moment of every race, of every heat, is the Super Bowl and the World Series. And if you're in the last 3 Olympic Games and you're a sprinter, you know full well you're not winning a gold medal because Usain Bolt is. So those people, just to get from heat 1 to heat 2 is the greatest moment of their lives. And if they lose a heat, they're going to go home after training for what could be half of their lives at that point. The moments of jubilation and dejection are like no other sport. You can shoot a Marlins game every day in the regular season and you won't see one moment on a player's face that's equivalent of just winning a heat in any Olympic sport. So the Olympics are my favorite sport. My favorite event to cover, my favorite sport to cover is football because you can move. 50 yards in the end zone, 100 yards up the field. In basketball, you sit in one spot on the floor. In hockey, you sit up against the glass with a hole in front of you that you shoot through. In basketball, you sit on the floor underneath the basket, and everything has to either come to you or you watch on the other end. So football is my favorite sport. But I'll go through these photos, and then I'll answer some questions. And also, when I lecture, if people have questions while I'm talking, feel free to raise your hand. I don't mind being interrupted. I think it's important because sometimes you'll forget what you were going to ask. And I think your questions are more important than me being interrupted. So feel free to ask at any time. So this photo here is in front of the German National House. Ironically, when I was setting up to take this picture, the German national team was in training, and they pulled up to sit down on the floor and take a photo, a selfie for themselves. So what was a standalone photo just by itself turned out to be a really great moment. And that's the kind of thing that sort of happens when you're a journalist and a sports photographer. You get lucky, all right? And luck isn't opportunity and then whatever meeting. Luck is luck. And most people say that if I was to step on a pile of dog crap, there'd be a $100 bill. And then under the $100 bill, there'd be another one. That's how lucky I've been in my career. These moments are very lucky. They make iconic photos, scene setters, if you will. You can tell where it is. You can see emotion on their face, and they make really strong images. Those are the things that I prefer to look for other than just great action shots when shooting the Olympics. Also, jumping in for a selfie is really what I'm all about. So, this photo here is from opening ceremonies. One thing I didn't explain in the beginning, I own a company called Polaroid University. I have a licensing deal. We teach online education about how to use your smartphone. Okay, we teach average everyday people how to take pictures like professionals. This photo, amongst several others in my slideshow, were taken on a phone. So I'm here to tell you that smartphone photography is getting better and better. If you've seen the Shot on iPhone campaigns, you know that you can go on a billboard or a TV commercial in 4K with this gear. And anybody who says that it's not good enough, even standing in such a prestigious place like this, where Leica is the best camera systems in the world, Leica makes the best cameras for smartphones now, if you know the Huawei brand, all right? I actually was just in Germany 2 days ago. I got home last night. I'm very jet lagged and tired, but I had a great opportunity to go to the Leica factory in Wexler. Had a chance to go behind the scenes and see how cameras were made. I'm curious, I want to ask a question to you guys. Does anybody here other than the staff know where the name Leica came from? No? Does anybody on the staff know? Close, but it's light and camera combined, okay? That's where it all started, in my opinion, where photography and being able to pick up your camera and walk away with it started. So I was just in Germany, just at the factory, and it was really cool. And it's pretty classic that a company as prestigious as Leica is also making lenses for smartphones and enhancing the ability for bloggers and Instagrammers and people to have careers just using their phones. Earlier this year, I got to shoot for Sports Illustrated a football game on an iPhone when the 7 Plus came out. A cover was just shot recently with The Rock on a Motorola phone. It's here to stay, and with I don't know 6 billion smartphones in the world, there's more photographers in the world than any other profession on earth. 1 trillion photos were taken last year, and that was more than in all of history combined. And this year it'll be broken, and next year it'll be broken, and so on and so on. So this is why I choose to open this portion of my slideshow with this particular photo. Oh, there's another selfie. I promise that's the last one. This one also is very indicative of where smartphones have come, where you would see lighters being held up at concerts and at events like this. It's now everybody's smartphones. This picture was also taken on a smartphone, and it doesn't look bad this big. This one as well. This one was taken with a professional camera. These also are the kind of photos that I really enjoy. I like opening ceremonies. It makes for interesting symmetry photos. I don't know if you know the rule of symmetry. This is a very good example of a horizontal line of symmetry where you can fold it either way, and a vertical line of symmetry. This is why I like this image so much from opening ceremonies. This is Gisele Bündchen, and I just like her a lot, so she's in the slideshow. But it's a great example of rule of thirds. I really like the darkness that surrounds the photograph. Again, you would find 2,000 photographers shooting the same thing, and it's very difficult to make a picture that no one else has, but I've scoured the AP wire and the Getty wire, and this is a unique image that no other photographer had. This is just another image from opening ceremonies. This one here, again, taken on a smartphone. I think you know, these are very strong images. I have some printed material where these smartphone images were printed on very nice photo paper, and you really have a hard time telling from the originals.
Are you shooting on a type of lens?
No, these are just all native stuff to the iPhone. This was also an endorsement deal. Sports Illustrated had an arrangement with Apple to have several of their photographers shoot with smartphones. I'm also a brand ambassador for a photo paper company and for Sony video camera systems. I shoot quite a bit of video. I probably shot 70% video at the Olympics. And being a still photographer, I think it's kind of ironic. And I know many photographers, having been to several Olympics and a lot of big events, many photographers who have never even tried the video function on their cameras, whether it's a Leica or a Canon or a Nikon. To me, that's irresponsible. It's half of what your camera does. I've also heard from people about smartphones, professional photographers. The quote is from a lot of them, "I don't talk on my camera, so why would I take pictures on my phone?" I'm really happy to hear that, because those people will wind up working at Walmart someday instead of taking jobs away from me. This is another image that was shot on a smartphone. It's very strong. You can see it handles light very well. And again, if you know just a few things about how to control certain apps, you can shoot smartphone photography just like a pro. This is the Olympic torch. I like this image a lot because it's one of the most unique torches I've ever seen in Olympic history. This gentleman here asked me earlier how the Olympics was in Rio. It was fantastic. There were moments, like in any country, in any Olympics, where there was some security fear, or coming back from an event at 2 in the morning was a little nerve-wracking, especially in a foreign country, but I never felt really in danger. And I had the time of my life, and I thought for the first time in a Latin American country to hold the Olympics, they blew it away, especially with things like the Olympic torch. I like this image a lot because it's the last time Michael Phelps will walk in, and he held the American flag. I have many, many pictures of Michael Phelps swimming, standing on the medal platform, and all sorts of other features in the studio and out. But for me, this moment is very special because it's the first time he carried the flag in, and it's the last time that will happen. Go into some action shots now. This is Katie Ledecky. I like this image a lot. I think it also shares a rule of thirds feel about it. And I think the strongest point to the photo is the water and the movement and the cracking of the water. This is accomplished with a very high shutter speed. It also shows the sensor ability because it's indoors and it's not natural light. So this image is really strong for me. I like the reflection in her glasses showing the lane ropes. And that's a 400 2.8. So And it's shot at almost ground level. There's a platform where there's probably 15 steps that go up, and it's about 90 feet long. And the idea, if you've done the Olympics before, is to sit as close to the middle as you can get, and to get as low as you can get. So when the event starts at 4 p.m., I'm there at 9 a.m., and I sit in my spot all day. And that's the only way you get the best spots. So you show up early and you stay late, and you win the play, as we say in the business. This is an example of Usain Bolt running an early heat. This picture, I explain this and I show this picture. It's not an exceptional photo, but this picture is an example of using the custom functions on a Canon camera to the max. On Canon cameras, they have settings where there's a little track and field guy in the custom function. When you put it there, it only focuses on the person closest to you. There's a yellow tennis ball on there. When you push that button, it won't focus on the color of yellow, so that if you're shooting tennis, it doesn't focus back to the ball, it stays on the face. Here, when there's guys coming at you, you can't tell who's in the lead. And when there's 8 guys spread across the lane, other than Usain Bolt in the race, you wouldn't have no idea who's in the lead. It's very easy in the last 3 Olympics to know who's in the lead all the time, because it's going to be him. But it's very hard in any other Olympic Games, and I assume it will be in Tokyo, unless he comes back, which I think he's going to figure out who's in the lead. Here's Usain celebrating as he crosses the finish line. And you could see, and we were talking earlier about his talent. I've seen every race and every medal he's won. This man never ran his max out in any race. And I've met him several times in the studio, and he said, I run for fun. I don't run to break world records. I like to win. You know, I know I will win, but this guy on the left is trying as hard as he can. And Usain Bolt is looking up at the scoreboard as he crosses the finish line to make sure he looks good. Here he is again, celebrating as he crosses the line. These images were shot on a 200 to 400 4.5 lens. This lens gives you the ability, with a converter built in, to go up to 540 millimeters. So you can get him at the end of the track getting into his starting blocks, you can get him coming down the track, and you can get him running by. And with one lens, it's 6 or 7 really strong images, as opposed to just a fixed lens. Again, this is the kind of picture that I like a lot because it falls into rule of thirds again. It has a line of symmetry down the middle, and it has an expression and a feel and a moment that's different than just somebody jumping over the hurdles, the high bar. And of course, he won the gold medal, so that helps too. I like this picture a lot because handball is the fastest moving sport I've ever shot. I have myself in a unique situation after 30 years in sports photography of being able to go to the Olympics as a contributor, which means I'm not on staff for a newspaper or a magazine. I'm credentialed by the Associated Press, but the Associated Press has the rights to publish my images and manage my images. They can't tell me who else I can work for or who else I can sell my pictures for. They don't tell me what sports to shoot or where to be at any given time, which is something that is a big advantage, because if not, I would shoot swimming for 10 days and go home, gymnastics for 5 days and go home. Every other photographer that's not there under a contributor pass has that situation where, unless they pay their own way, they don't get to stick around. So I choose to pay my own way. I pay my own airfare, pay my own hotels. If you're going to do something like that, you better plan to drop $15,000 or $20,000, because that's what it could cost. But for me, I know I'm going to make that plus a whole lot more. So I go under that kind of a credential, and I get to shoot sports that I would never ordinarily get to shoot. And handball, but the first time I've done it this year, it's very fast, very difficult, really challenging, and even to just get someone in the air, that their hands move so quick, they're running vertically and horizontally, it's very hard. This picture is, I like these images a lot. Beach volleyball is my favorite sport. It's kind of self-explanatory. You know, Team Brazil is very good, and I like these kind of images because you don't need a cut line to tell what's going on. You see the Brazilian colors, you see the Canadian colors, you see Rio 2016. You know what the picture is all about without having to write a caption to go along with it. This picture is one of my favorites because, again, it falls into that rule of thirds. This was a spread in Sports Illustrated. This is not an accident. You purposely shoot so that the gutter or the center of the magazine can go right down the middle. You've got room on both sides for copy. It's intentional, and I shot this picture with it in mind that it would get published just like that. And when it does, again, it's not an accident. It's something that you preconceive. This is a typical action photo where a lot of photographers shoot. It's bullseye. It's a great moment. The ball's flattened out on her hands. You could see the Olympic rings. You could see emotion on her face. The lighting is strong. Again, it would be considered a very strong action photo, but it's not as difficult to shoot. But I do like the way the ball is flattened out there and the fact that you could see the Olympic rings. This picture is a custom function on the Canon system, multiple exposure function. You can shoot up to 9 frames. It works best at night with dark backgrounds. Becomes very popular, but it's something that you can shoot native in the camera, and you don't have to do anything in Photoshop, which isn't allowed ethically in journalism. This is a pan blur during cycling event. It's really hard to take unique pictures at the Olympics. There's 2,000 photographers there. There's people next to you on both sides. There's people behind you and in front of you. So if you manage to get a picture that's unique, it's very, you know, it's very hard to do. This picture is also taken with my hand over the railing and pointing down. So most photographers will just stay in their seat and they'll shoot with the camera in front of their face. We like to say that we call it Hail Marying. When you take your camera away from your face and shoot, you're just praying you get a good picture. All right? There's really not a lot of prayer in it with digital photography anymore. When I first started in sports photography, we would shoot, and then you'd go into the darkroom and you'd have to wait until your film was developed to know if you had a decent picture or not. All those things are ruled out now, so I could shoot them circling 2 or 3 times before the finish line, make sure I got the shot, and then go to a normal setting to make sure I get the winner. So part of it for me is, if I'm there, I'm not just there to get the gold medal moment. I'm there to make features. I'm there to make unique photographs. This is a picture, we call this a fried egg, because you've got the ball coming through each side of the racket, okay? Obviously, it's Serena Williams. She's the greatest tennis player of all time. That makes it a really great picture all by itself. But to get the ball in between the racket like that is a timing thing. It's not motor driven. You can have 10 frames a second or 20 frames a second, and if you try to motor through that shot on a backhand every time, you'll never, ever catch it unless you watch her speed, you watch where the racket's going 2 or 3 times, and you shoot 1 frame at a time. I did this 3 times in that match, and it's more because I'm really old and I have a lot of experience than anything else. These are pictures that I really like because, again, they fall into rule of thirds, okay? Having the ability to make 3/4 spread and have room for copy will make you more money than just trying to make great photographs. A double truck in Sports Illustrated is $3,000. A cover is $4,000. An inset picture, which we call postage stamps, is about $300. I know a lot of photographers who get plenty of postage stamps. I'm not interested in those. I'm interested in covers and spreads. That pays the bills and is always seems for me a more powerful photograph. Here's a feature again at that same spot. I went back to that spot to shoot the cycling because I liked the ground here. And I shoot a pan blur. It's a lot of timing, a lot of attempts to try to get it lined up and make a decent picture. Those were action shots. These are feature shots. Feature shots are more shots that don't have the ball or any part of an action photo in it. This is a photograph at that same velodrome where There's nothing really speed to it. It's not very hard to make, but the whole idea is to tell you where it is, set the scene, and make a strong moment. I like it as a bullseye. I very rarely shoot bullseye pictures because, as I said before, they don't make a lot of money. They're hard to crop and fit into holes in magazines and newspapers. But this image I like a lot because it's actually the Olympic rings vertically and not horizontally.
When you say bullseye, you mean like a swimming photo?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I usually like to place things in a third of the frame, okay, on the left third or the right third. And you know, anything that's bullseye is usually very hard. You have to put it into, you have to make it small. It can't be spread over 2 pages. And if it's bullseye on a vertical, if it doesn't fit into a vertical crop of the magazine, it won't get used either. So the whole idea when you go to events like this, or you're shooting these kind of sports images, is to get play. And play, but meaning people are going to use them. I know a lot of photographers have really great sports pictures, but if they're never published anywhere and no one ever sees them, then for me, you know, what's the point?
Somebody who goes to like a lot of events and shoots, what do you think is the best way to actually reach out to, you know, companies for it to be published?
Well, it's a great question because when I started, there were no other avenues other than the Miami Herald or Sports Illustrated. But now there's a lot of contributor websites. Getty takes contributor art. In fact, every newspaper, every online from Fox and CNN take user submissions, and they'll pay you for them if they use them. Every TV station takes them. There's something really cool about the internet, and that is there are millions of clients where there were hundreds when I started in this industry. So if you get a unique picture in Miami, if you call the Miami Herald or ABC or Channel 10, Channel 7, Channel 4, it's a picture of some refugees coming up on the beach off of a raft. You can call 20 different places and say, I got a picture, and they can say, well, email it, text it to me. And you text it, but we like it, and it's $300 or $100 or $500. User-generated content is going to be everything in journalism. If there's an overthrow in Iran, all the pictures are going to come out of smartphones or people that are independent photographers. It's not as easy nowadays for professionals to get into a zone. When 9/11 happened, I was in New York 24 hours later. The pictures that came out, most of them were from people that were standing right there. When Hurricane Katrina hit, I was in New Orleans 24 hours later. User-generated content, citizen journalism is going to dominate the media as years come by because of devices like this. All right, so there's websites. There's a company called EYEM, E-Y-E-M. You can post your pictures on there, and they'll sell them for you. And you may get $5 a shot or $10 a shot, but the beautiful thing about that is you make money in your sleep. Somebody's always awake around the world. So I have hundreds of thousands of images on the Getty wire, the AP wire, the Reuters wire, the UPI wire. Those images make money while I sleep. I get royalty checks all the time. I get paid for pictures that I took in the 80s and 90s. I get more money today than I did for the whole day on one sale because I archive that stuff. And I file it.
Sorry, what was the name of the website?
EYE capital M. EYIM. And that's just one. There's hundreds of agencies. And anybody who's interested in that, I'll give you my card afterwards. Drop me an email or a call, and I'll give you any information that you want. There's more ways to make money in photography now than ever before. And it's a lot easier to get your stuff out. When I started, like I said, you either work for a newspaper, a magazine, or a wire service, and that was it.
Is color a preference over black and white?
No. I mean, if it's a strong black and white image, you might get it published over a color image. But it just has to capture a moment. I mean, if you're standing in Baltimore when there's a riot going on and you make a picture, a newspaper won't matter. I mean, if it's good. And sometimes separating yourself that way is the easy way to get it published over a color picture.
So do a lot of the news outlets and newspapers, do they search these sites to buy this?
All day.
Or you have to have a contact?
No, all day. This is what it is.
If you go through all these websites, if you're posting your pictures there, then you'll be contacted by the
Sometimes, yeah. I get calls all the time. And it also depends on how you caption it. Metadata and keywording is everything. So if If it's something that happened in Miami, if the caption says Miami, riot, the date, all these things, they're searching by those keywords. And if they search by those keywords, they might even come up with your website or your Facebook page. That's how these images, they're found instantly. And the other thing is, if you're an AP photographer and you're on an assignment, you're not filing that picture right away. You have to shoot until the story's over, and then you go in your car or back to your office or home and you file the pictures. In most cases, citizen journalism gets out much faster. And that's the key. The faster picture gets the break, gets the play. I like this picture a lot. Kevin Durant's a good buddy of mine. We do a lot of stuff together. He's a really awesome photographer. He owns a company called the Players Tribune, an online website. It's the new Sports Illustrated and ESPN. It's the best sports photography in the world, above any magazine by far. Kevin, I shot the Super Bowl with him, the 50th Super Bowl in San Francisco. Yeah, he loves photography. We shot a lot of stuff at the Olympics together. And so I like this picture. Again, it's rule of thirds, all right? He's positioned over to this side. It tells you where and what's going on. It doesn't take a lot to figure out what this is. This picture is the Russian water polo team. It's not a phenomenal picture. There's nothing really special about it, but if you do your homework, you know that the Russian team was sent home, most of them, for steroids. So there was only a handful of athletes left. So a picture like this could be very valuable if you show the whole team. So an action photo of them in the water is not the shot, because you may only get 5 or 6 players. Here's a chance to show all these Russian athletes competing at the Olympics when the story was all about the fact that most of them weren't allowed to compete at the Olympics.
So when the news broke, did you keep in mind like, oh wait, I just shot that, let me see if I can get that out ASAP?
Well, I knew beforehand. So when I went, I got into an elevated position. I got away from the other photographers, and I made sure during the anthem, when they were doing the Russian anthem, that I made a picture that would win the play over anything else.
So an obvious question would be like, always know what's going on, like in
do your homework. Do your homework. I'll give you another example. I've covered the Miami Hurricanes for decades. I think it was Ken Dorsey was about to break the record for the most touchdowns in Miami Hurricane history. It was he needed 2. So in the first quarter, they were driving for their second score. And they had Michael Irvin, they had all these great wide receivers, running backs, they had a great team. When he went to throw the touchdown pass, I stayed on him. Everybody wants to catch, but I stayed on him. When he put his hand up like this, it wasn't the greatest shot, but it won all the play because it was and then they announced it on the loudspeaker. That's the 200 touchdown pass, most in Miami Hurricanes history. I also knew, excuse me, I also knew that the pedigree of quarterbacks at Miami was ridiculous. So that would be a big story moving forward, and the next guy that would break it, that photo would get played over and over again. So doing your homework, knowing what the score is, what the records are on the line. It's not always Mark McGuire is 5 home runs away from Barry Bonds or Hank Aaron or whatever, Roger Maris. It's knowing little things about records that are going to get your pictures play over everything else. This is just a feature photo that I like because it shows Copacabana Beach in the background. It shows the rowing venue. You see the Olympic rings there. You see all the fans down there. This picture got a lot of play, mostly because I'm on Sugarloaf Mountain and I see this. And I'm standing in a spot that's going to take a picture that no other journalist is going to have. Even if they go up to that mountain, the likelihood they're going to stand in the same spot with the same lens and take the same picture is not really possible. So these pictures are unique. If you're in a situation where millions of people have taken photographs at the Great Wall of China, maybe you want to lay down on the ground, maybe you want to pop up on a step stool or stand on a wall somewhere. The only way to get unique pictures is to be where other people aren't. This picture was taken at the top of the Olympic beach volleyball venue. And the thing about it is that everybody's worried about security and terrorism. So the story was all about there's going to be an attack. Something's going to happen. Is the security going to be strong enough? Are they going to protect people? Well, when I saw these rings and I saw this boat going back and forth through the rings, I knew that if I made a picture, it would tell a story about the security. So again, you're trying to make photographs at these events that are features, that don't have athletes in them necessarily, that don't have to have the ball in them or show great Olympic moments, but tell them a bigger story about what's going on socially or security purposes or whatever. And this picture got a ton of play. Again, I'm standing in a spot that very few journalists, everybody else is down on the sand shooting those same pictures of this going on. All right, everybody's got that photo of the ball coming off the hands like I showed you earlier. The difference is finding something different, an angle, a moment that's relevant, that makes part of the story. These types of pictures will be played at every Olympics moving forward when they talk about security. Well, in Brazil, they use battleships or you know, whatever that boat is. And those pictures will continue to get play. And good pictures are reoccurring revenue. You know, that'll get play and play and play and make you money in your sleep.
When you say, you mentioned something about like seeing the aspect ratio or the size for being published.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like in this shot, what were you thinking as far as?
I was thinking Newsweek, Time, newspapers, not sports magazines. I was thinking that if there is an attack, this picture is going to crush it. You know, and I'm thinking that, you're thinking about something moving forward, not necessarily. If there's an attack on an Olympics 50 years from now, this picture might get play, where they say there wasn't enough security or the kind of security wasn't good enough. I'll give you a great example, the election of 2000, when we didn't have a president for a month, okay? Florida screwed that up pretty bad. The Palm Beach Emergency Operations Center was where they were counting ballots, and in Miami they were dimple chads and all that. But on day one, after we didn't have a president, there was 200 of us in the Emergency Operations Center in Palm Beach. Media everywhere. There was no pictures. What's going on? There's no president, but where's the picture? There was no protesting yet. None of that was going on. I'm standing there with hundreds of other photographers and writers and reporters, and I just leaned over to a woman behind the counter, and I said, so what's the controversy? And she said, well, there was some confusion with the ballot. It's a butterfly ballot, the punch ballot. So I said, well, do you have a ballot? She goes, yeah, I think I have one. She pulls one out and she hands it to me. I put it down on the ground and I took a picture of it. I picked it up, and as I handed it back, Teresa Williams, or the head of the election control, saw it from behind the podium while giving a press conference, stopped the press conference and ran over and said, this is government property, you can't have that. And everybody started clamoring. That picture is the only picture of the butterfly ballot. If you check the AP wire, it's been published in everything from Time magazine to Playboy magazine. Every year I make money off it. Every election year I make a lot of money off of it. All because it's the only picture that existed. And all I could think of was, if this is the controversy, I better take a picture of it. So that kind of thinking about, and I'm a capitalist, a patriot, and a carnivore. I admit it freely. It's what it is. I want to get paid.
Were there any repercussions for that picture? Like, did anyone from the government say, hey, like when you, I guess, licensed it to those publications?
No, in that particular situation, it really wasn't anybody's fault. You know what I'm saying? I have taken pictures that have gotten me in trouble like that before. I was in Cuba right after the Al-Qaeda prisoners were brought into Camp X-Ray. We weren't supposed to have lenses bigger than a 200. Back then I had a 100 to 400 that pulled out, so whenever they weren't looking, I pulled it out and I made a picture of them with a terrorist with his head down. That terrorist wound up being tortured and some other things that had happened during the controversy. And I got a call from the Secretary of Defense, Rumsfeld, from Victoria Clark, the press secretary for Rumsfeld, who said that I wasn't supposed to take that picture and I'm not allowed to go back to Guantanamo Bay ever again, which I never want to do ever again. Spent 13 days there in the same clothes. This picture was taken from my hotel balcony. Zika was a big story. They were spraying for mosquitoes every morning outside our hotel. There's these meshes so that you can't throw anything outside your windows onto the street in a 5-star hotel. I thought this was a very interesting photograph with Sugarloaf Mountain in the background to tell the story of Zika. All right?
The mesh is for the kids.
Oh, it is? Oh. I was...
Apartment buildings have them too, so
Oh.
it's safety for the kids not to go out the balcony.
Really? All right.
That's why they don't do it here.
Yeah. Someone in the hotel said, well, we don't want anybody throwing anything off. All right, cool. All right, it's a safety thing. But I just thought it was an interesting, photograph. Here's another photo that tells the Zika story. Outside the Olympic Village, they were spraying with masks on with people walking all over. There was, you know, they were doing it every morning, everywhere you went, everywhere you eat. These are, again, these are feature photographs. These tell the story without any caption. The other thing is, if you notice, this is a horizontal picture, this is a vertical picture. Every story I do, I send verticals and horizontals. Why? Because editors want to go home just like everybody else. They fill holes. They don't look for good pictures. They have a vertical hole to fill. They pick the picture that fills that hole. So the idea is to send it both, and you have a much better chance of getting the play. This is just a different feature. Without having to show it's Serena Williams, everybody really knows who it is.
Well, wouldn't that be able to, wouldn't be able to sell that as like a stock photo for Nike or something sports?
Yeah, and I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's part of the deal too. Is Nike also has a viewer submission area on their website, where if you got a cool picture, you go to their Facebook page or Instagram page, you can submit it that way. I work for Nike. I do a lot of commercial work for them, so I can send this in at any time to an editor and get it sold. Another picture of Serena, the hair flying. Okay, again, no ball. You know, no great action moment of the ball, flat egg on the racket, but it also says a lot. It's rule of thirds, which gives it a chance to be a spread. It's got the American flag, says the Olympics, and it's undeniably Serena Williams. This is a picture of Carmelo Anthony right before the game, stretching out. You've got plenty of pictures of these guys dunking and doing amazing action shots. This kind of feature will get you play more than anything. Just looking for moments, being down low, so you got the ceiling where there's no lights, you've got a darker background, rather than standing up where part of the fans would be in there. You want it to be clean, you want to have a blurred out background, and you want to have, again, a vertical rule of thirds. Dejection shots. These kind of images, strong dejection pictures, it's hard to tell whether it's dejection or jubilation. Dejection and jubilation are the main things that we look for as journalists. You look for moments of victory and moments of defeat. It's very easy to get a moment of victory. Getting a moment of defeat is hard because most people aren't looking for it. They're looking for the player who dunked instead of the player who's dunked on. You get the player who's dunked on, you've got a better chance of winning the play because everybody else is looking for the player who's doing the dunking. These images again, dead space, the leading lines of the track coming in on sort of an S-curve. You know, still a double truck ability. You could cut it down the middle. You're not cutting her head off. You're not cutting anything that's not going to work. It doesn't matter who it is. It tells the story, the agony of defeat. This can get into the year in sports. An Olympic magazine that's all about the Olympics. Doesn't have to be Michael Phelps. Doesn't have to be Serena Williams. This one is a little different, coming the other way. This one is not as good an example because it's such a long horizontal, it's very hard to place it anywhere. Again, if you're cropping too tight sometimes, it's hard to find a place to do it. They'd have to put it in with a black box below it to make caption. Or they'd have to put it in as an inset picture and it would be very small. I like the photo because you could see his face and that's why I keep it in the show. Here is a moment of dejection that's vertical. Again, the leading lines, the rule of thirds, always looking for both, always turning both ways. Shooting him, when I shot him horizontally, the track had grass over here. So it didn't look so good, it wasn't clean. So I went vertical with all this, the background being the same background, it gets much cleaner. Editors look for that as well. People don't know what they like or don't like about photos. They make their mind up right away.
I have a question. When you're not concerned about a commerce photo, what do you personally like to photograph?
Fans. Fans. The crowd. Yeah. I like to photograph the people in the crowd. I think, you know, especially at football games, people dress up and paint. I like college football. I like walking around the parking lot before a bowl game. People are just acting foolish and having a good time. I like photographing the fans. Fan art to me, when when Colin Kaepernick was kneeling and protesting, okay, the fans had great signs. It wasn't just him on the field kneeling. It was the fan signs that say, move to Afghanistan if you don't like the USA. There was, when 9/11 happened, there were fans in football stadiums dressed as Saddam Hussein, not 9/11, when the Gulf War was going on, dressed as Saddam Hussein with red, white, and blue rockets through each side of their head. Priceless photographs that, you know, most people are looking this way. When you turn around and face the fans, and some people think I'm shooting the cheerleaders, I'm not all the time. Fan art is valuable because those are pictures that also have commerce. So I guess kind of to answer your question, I'm always thinking about commerce. I really am, but I enjoy mostly photographing the fans.
That actually brings me to another question. When did you get to be a fan of the sport?
You know,
Oh, good, I'm sure.
yeah, it's a really good question because you know, I don't usually get to sit in the stands, but I have 2 small children, and in the last couple of years I've taken my son and my daughter to a couple of Heat games, a couple of games, and I really enjoy being a fan. I'm the worst fan out there for the opposing team. I've heard every heckle in the world. So if I'm sitting in the stands and I'm not have to be a journalist, I can get on players like nobody else. Baseball players strike out, I'm like, dude, you got a big house. Just walk back to the dugout. It's over. You're done. You got a big house. You're good. You know, Cecil Fielder is this real big baseball player. He walked up to the plate. I was at a Marlins game, I remember, a few years ago, and I'm just yelling, single or home run? Single or home run? Because there's no way he's legging out a double or a triple. And he looked back and he was like, and he gave me the bird. And when that happens...
You wish you had your camera.
Yeah, you know what? I've actually been flipped off by so many players, and one of the more famous pictures I have of Barry Bonds, he's flipping me off. We were at spring training and I'm shooting and he looked at me and I could see, I've got a lens this big, but I could see him look at me and go, enough already. And I'm like, and he put his finger up and that picture got so much play, it was ridiculous. I'll give you another example of a funny moment like that. I used to be the Heat team photographer, and Pat Riley and I know each other for years. But he's kind of an a-hole, all right? I do the team picture every year. The whole team lines up, 1 chair is left open, and we wait. Pat walks in, he says, what's your name? I said, it's Marc Serota, coach. He says, you did this last year? I said, yep, and the last 4 years in a row. He says, how long did it take you? I said, it took me like 2 minutes. He goes, good, break your record. All right? After that, we go into the back where there's a blue background set up, where you shoot headshots of every player for the media guide. You see the blue taken out on TV, and you see those headshots in news reports. All those pictures are pictures that photographers like me have taken. When the players come in, you have to have a sign with their name on it, okay? And they have to hold it up so an editor in New York knows who they are. Even though everybody knew who Alonzo Mourning and Timmy Hardaway were, they hold up. The first frame is Alonzo Mourning. The second frame is like this. We move on. Nothing hard about it. Coach Riley walks in. I got a sign. I said, Coach, I need you to hold this sign up. He says, I'm not holding the sign up. I said, Coach, I got to do this. It's the NBA rules. He says, okay, fine. Holds the sign up like this in front of his face. I take the picture. He gets up and walks out. I said, Coach, I need a clean shot. He goes, that's all you get. Well, the picture had a Laker championship ring on this finger and a Laker championship ring on this finger. Here you see his hair, his chin, and the rings. Picture ran everywhere. I moved it. My editors thought I was a genius at the time. Best picture I ever took of Pat Riley, and he set me up for it. So sometimes getting flipped off or pissing them off will make a good picture. Another great moment in dejection, okay? This picture, you don't really have to know what's going on. Either he's dead or they lost. This picture is one of those photos you don't know whether it's Juba or dejection, okay? Anybody want to take a guess if that's celebration or dejection? That's dejection. She lost, okay? And that's the thing, you know? That's the kind of pictures that's why it's in the show. I like it very much. Very few people get it right. Jubilation shots, what we're talking about. Here you've got the agony of defeat and the thrill of victory in the same shot. A great jubilation picture has 2 players in it, both from each team. Again, you don't have to know what's going on. You know the guy from Germany won, and the guy from, well, let's just say Uzbekistan, I don't know what colors those are, lost. So great jubo also has dejection in it. This is celebration. I'm not going to trick you guys again. This is DeAndre Jordan. He's a crazy individual, and he's celebrating winning against Angola by 45 points. Okay? That's the Olympics. You won't see that against Milwaukee or against New Jersey or against Miami, but he's celebrating beating Angola. All right? Another moment of victory, moment of defeat, and this at the bottom is really important. Don't have to write up what's in that photograph. You know what's going on just by looking at it. That's my boy. That's a good friend of mine, and he won, and they didn't win a medal, but I'm really glad, and I keep it in the photo because I also like the fact that it's from an elevated position. Again, all the sand in the background, nothing taking away from the shot. If you turn your head away and look back, you only see the look on his face. Yeah, great photographs are why covers of books get sold and get put in the front of the window. They don't have to be the best photograph for what the book's about. They just have to get people to stop, walk in the door, and pick up the book.
Or do you have to get releases from athletes or from fans?
No. What most outlets would like is to have their names. I always have their names. You get a roster with an internet now. I can go right to the game results and know who's in the picture. I know by the number on the shirt or by the name on the back who it is. That's another thing. I motor through a picture. Even the best picture, I wait until they all turn around so that I don't have to always go and do a lot of research. Saves me time when I'm editing. You have to put the names of the players in. And if you shoot fan art, it's a good idea if you can get to them to ask their name. It only makes a picture more sellable, but it's not making any legal difference when it comes to any fan in the stadium. On the back of the ticket, it says you're going to be recorded or photographed. Any player already knows that as well.
So that's something you do way after?
Yeah, well, try not to be way. I try to. I transmit from my seat. I can do it off my iPad or bring a laptop. I can send pictures immediately. The idea is to pre-write your captions. Serena Williams blank, wins against blank. You pre-write on the date, in the stadium, in the city, during the 31st Olympiad. You pre-write all your captions. We have something called code enforcement, code replacement in our softwares. So all I have to do is put the number 12 down when I'm shooting a Patriots game, and Tom Brady's name automatically goes in. So you do that to avoid spelling errors and to save time. But I pre-write all my captions.
You mentioned editing and how quickly you try to get things out.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you have a case where you maybe look back later and find something maybe that at the time didn't seem significant to you?
All the time. All the time. That's why I'm always up till 2 in the morning sometimes. But second day sales make you a lot more money than first day sales. Okay? Newspapers and magazines have memberships so they can take the photos that day and use them for no extra money. Sometimes I pull back good pictures on purpose. I get the moment out there, but I know a magazine photo I'd rather release on Monday because Sports Illustrated's deadline is Tuesday. And I'd rather get $3 grand than just a day rate. So, and that's not hurting the cause because I'm moving 80 pictures anyway at that event, including the game-winning moments. But a good magazine photo, I won't move till the second day because I get the 50% of those royalties.
When you're shooting and you're sending out, are you sending out to just one person when you do it immediately?
I'm sending it out to the desk in Washington or New York, and it goes out to 1 billion eyes instantly. Every editor on the planet looks at the Associated Press wire all night, all day when they're sitting on their desks. And that's the thing too, is nowadays it's 24/7. You make money in your sleep. As I said, some magazine, some newspaper, some website is doing a story, especially on sports, you know? Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you see people taking lots of pictures and, like you said, multiple targets, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know who, I mean, in Disney, give an example, bad example. They have a little card that says, okay, they scan your cards and they associate a picture in the roll, or, take 500 pictures. How do I remember who's who?
It's a good question. Who's the photographer?
Is there an app or something you guys use?
Well, no, like the Super Bowl, for example. I have to shoot lights. He'll shoot the goal post. He'll shoot the goal line. Every first frame on every new card, I shoot the lights. They know that's Marc Serota. First frame on every new card that comes out. When you have a break, you shoot a cone, even whether it's a mile away or whether it's right in front of you. Some people have to shoot their sneakers. Some people shoot their hand. If you have 8 photographers, we all figure that out. The editor knows, and the cards are marked with your name on them. And the editor keeps two plastic cups in and out. So when the cards come in from the runners, they go in the in cup. They get ingested, or we call it sucking the card, and then they go in the out box. So there's very few mistakes made.
Just after that, can you explain like the workflow at the Olympics? Because I read articles where it was like, dozens of editors, dozens of streamers. And
it's changed a lot. So now we're all hardwired. So my spot is assigned, and there's a cable that connects into my camera. Everything I shoot goes straight back to the editor's desk. The editor then goes through it and picks, bip, 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 bip. He tags the ones that he likes. A low res goes to Washington, or somebody's editing from home, right? A lot of our editors edit at home, especially in the middle of the night. They don't pay people to go sit in the office. So the editor will sit there at home, and I got to do swimming tonight. And when the low reses come in, he goes and tags that, and then the high res comes over. All happens very quickly. So editors are working all over the world. There's very few editors on site. Most of the editors on site are there for the second day stuff, not for the deadline stuff. Nowadays, it's too competitive. If your pictures aren't out, and like before when Usain Bolt's running, there's pictures being worked up, like maybe not him because he's 9.4 seconds, but in most situations, pictures are being worked on before the touchdown even goes into the end zone. There's no time for a minute, 2 minutes will kill you in the play. First picture out wins. But not to say, and at the Super Bowl, what we'll do is we'll wear laptops on our back and we'll Wi-Fi it straight back. But we also will pull the cards to make sure that there's no errors, and there's runners. So we move after every touchdown. We move after the first drive of each team. So each possession, let's say the Patriots get the ball and they go 3 and out. Then Atlanta gets the ball and they go 3 and out. We move. And then the next score, first score for each team, move the cards. But other than that, we go with the wireless transmit. This picture is pretty unique. This was during one of the early heats. And when he won, he's actually running when he did this. And he put his finger up, and as he ran by, it lined up between his eyes. I know everybody around me, nobody had him lined up like that, right between, it's either here or here. So this picture got a lot of play because of it. Again, you have, the crop is important, a little bit of rule of thirds. I shot this vertically, all right? But I had so many good vertical pictures that I decided to crop this horizontally. And because I had it lined up and it's sharp, really hard to do, this picture won a lot of play. And this one was more luck than anything else. It's running through it and trying to line it up.
If you don't mind, a picture like this, what kind of, when you say a lot of play, how much is, do you know what this picture has generated?
I'd probably say a couple $1,000s so far. But the key to it is not just that. I'll make money, my grandchildren will make money off this picture. And that's the thing is, every photo you take is your assets. Your content is your assets. Content is everything in the world today. I mean, the Discovery Channel has 3 billion watchers because people are passing their content off to other stations all over the world. Content is everything. So you have to look at it as though, I'll give you another great example. I'm shooting the Orange Bowl Classic tennis tournament right before the bowl game. I hated doing it. It's like 1985. I'm like, what am I doing out here? National championship is tomorrow. I thought I was being punished. This little kid's running around like a maniac with long blonde hair, and he's killing the ball. Shoot all these pictures of him. 15 years later, it's Andre Agassi. I mean, I'm shooting the Miss America pageant after that internship. They sent me to shoot the Miss USA pattern, Bob Barker standing up there, and the second runner-up is this really beautiful woman that 25 years later, I'm like, wait a minute. I remember, so I go and check, it's Halle Berry. Check it out. She was in the Miss America pageant here in Miami. I mean, these are assets. This is currency. And if you don't archive it properly, metadata it properly and give yourself the advantage able to find a picture, then you're just, you know, wasting your assets. This is the actual moment, you know, that got a whole lot of play. I'll show you after we're done how I cropped it vertically and it got into all sorts of magazines. The beauty of this picture is to shoot it horizontally, to be able to crop it vertically, so that you move it and they can actually, you know, put the Sports Illustrated thing right behind his head, have the breathing room around there. This is one of my favorite pictures of Bolt in all the Olympics, because he's also looking up at the lights. See his eyes? See the catch lights in his eyes? Looks like it was strobed. You get someone with their chin up a little bit and it makes all the difference in the world. This is obviously a moment of jubilation. And this girl was amazing. The girl from Puerto Rico won the gold medal in tennis. I mean, Serena Williams, Kerber, some of the best top 5 players in the world were there. I don't even think she was ranked, and she won the Olympics. I really enjoyed that moment. And again, having the Rio there makes a big difference. Being able to focus it on the left-hand side, setting your focusing zone to the left instead of bullseye. Same with the trophy pictures, okay? If you set your thing in bullseye on a trophy picture and you're right here, the hands get cut off or the racket gets cut off here. It's useless. You got to set it up at the top, at the lower part, so you're tilting up and leaving that dead space at the spot to fit the rackets and the hands. You cut the fingertips even a little bit. Even if they butt up against without any breathing room, the picture's not going to get the play. Another moment of her, I mean, she just gave it up the whole time. And then I made some travel pictures while I was there. This is a picture I shot Copacabana Beach. I didn't get to spend as much time looking around Rio as I wanted to, but I was fortunate enough to. This was shot at the top of the USA Athlete House. Again, I get the opportunity to visit certain places and do certain things. This is a shot that very few photographers at the Olympics would get to take. I moved it as a sports photographer. I moved it with all the caption that it was. And it's gotten plenty of play because it's a unique view of Copacabana Beach that very few people get. Another travel picture. Here's one that I did from Christ the Redeemer. I like the architecture. I really enjoyed walking through some of the smaller towns. This one was taken from the same spot at the top of the USA Athlete House. So this is a shot that I really like. This is obviously Christ the Redeemer, shot through the trees. I like taking pictures that I think are different than just the average, everyday view of the statue. This is a guy in the street when I was walking around. Again, black and white, has that, character that's different, and also moving those pictures. Sports Illustrated did a whole thing about Rio in the back of the magazine. Most of the pictures were contributor shots from people who were working outside the stadium. So for me to get a sale outside the stadium was a good thing, because most of the other sports photographers were shooting inside. Shot some of the graffiti. I thought that was interesting. These are panos I shot on my phone. Again, it's just a cool thing that is a great feature on the iPhone. I thought it was really neat because you got the statue, Sugarloaf Mountain, and Copacabana Beach all in the same shot. This picture was shot from the top of the beach volleyball stadium. It actually looks like, you know, the stadium's far away, and there's a fence up about this high, so I had to stand up on the bench and pano it where I couldn't see. It was a wall, and I just took a blind guess and panoed it. I really like it because you can see parts of Rio and the whole stadium inside. And that's it.
Wow.
Thank you.